So how's everyone doing today?
Fine.
Pretty good.
We're doing
Good?
great.
Good.
Let's change that. Okay.
So today we're going to talk about everyone's two favorite things, parasites and creepy crawlies. Who doesn't love that? And more specifically, parasites that affect other insects. And a lot of you may be thinking, oh, this is probably only in remote parts of the world where this doesn't affect me. In reality, this is happening to ladybugs in your backyard.
This is due to genetics, and genetics is the stuff that over millions of years decides to give humans opposable thumbs and created this little guy. Ain't he adorable? The frills and stuff. Yeah, but of course, genetics is also responsible for giving wasps the size of ice cream sprinkles the ability to use ladybugs as bodyguards, and a bacteria the ability to dissolve a caterpillar into a pile of mush.
It's okay. It's okay.
I appreciate this, Charlie.
So ladybugs are cute, right? Yeah? Yeah? Well, sort of. In reality, they're perfect killing machines. These veritable insectoid terminators can hunt and eat thousands of aphids in their lifetimes. They hunt aphids by using scent and different receptors they have to track aphids and certain plants that they eat, and then eventually hone in and destroy their prey with their spiked mandibles.
Yeah, they are very effective predators, but they're also capable of protecting themselves from predators who would like to eat them. So what they do is they bleed poison from leg joints, and the bitter taste of their meat toxin makes whatever attempts to eat them spit them out. This is usually effective, but nobody's perfect, not even ladybugs. So one huge problem that they run into is not very big at all. In fact, it is the wasps that I mentioned earlier, wasps the size of ice cream sprinkles.
These wasps, called Dinocampus coccinelle, inject the ladybugs with their egg and a cocktail of other chemicals. That's it, a ladybug even eating an aphid. They inject the ladybug with their egg and a cocktail of other chemicals to help basically dissolve the inside of the ladybug. As the larva grows, it does something none of you should ever do. It eats its house. Probably, it probably won't taste good, but yeah. So that is what the wasp does. And as the larva grows, it eventually will slither out through a hole in the ladybug's exoskeleton. But the ladybug, throughout this whole process, the ladybug remains unchanged.
And here's where it gets interesting, because even though the ladybug's body is free of its wasp intruder, its mind still remains under the wasp's control. So instead of running away and signing up for some therapy sessions, like I would, it stays there and waits for the larva to construct a cocoon around itself, and then acts as its bodyguard. It scares away any creatures who could potentially harm the cocoon. So, how does this victim become an employee?
Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's talk about what makes...
This is my infographic. It displays what happens and stuff. Like first there's ladybug. There's still a ladybug, and as it moves through, it continues to be ladybug. But there's a larva inside of it at one point, and then it's on the outside eventually.
And then it ends up in that beautiful little wasp right there. Okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's talk about what makes you and me just that, you and me. What I'm talking about, of course, is genetics. Genetics mainly is categorized into two things, our genotype and our phenotype. Our genotype is all of our DNA that makes up everything that makes up you and me, our physical appearance. So all of the DNA that makes me look like me or Thomas look like Thomas, that's our genotype. Now our phenotype is all of our DNA, including our genotype, and it includes our behavior, personality, and pretty much everything else that we do, all of our emotions and how we react to certain things. Yeah. That is... Oh, and this is my infographic. So the genotype makes up the physical appearance of the ladybug and the wasp shown here, and then our phenotype is like the personality and the physical, represented by the... He's cute, isn't he? Okay.
Richard Dawkins, a scientist, wrote two very important books, The Selfish Gene and The Extended Phenotype. Okay. These books are about evolution and genes, and they explored the idea that parasites manipulate genes to manipulate their victims.
No, wait, not yet.
Not yet? Okay, continue then.
After Richard Dawkins published his book, The Selfish Gene, after he published it, many scientists swarmed over many parasites, trying to figure out how they actually were able to control their hosts. And what they found was that it's not always the genes of one animal trumping the genes of another. It is often there it is. It is often animals using enzymes. Okay, really big spike.
Oh God, no!
Well,
I fell.
it was cute for a second. There we go.
This strange behavior of the parasitism and manipulation of genes is actually pretty common all over the world. In Costa Rica, the Hymenopomesis argyrophaga, I crushed that by the way, an orb-weaving spider gets eggs laid on it. No, is another type of wasp lays eggs on the orb-weaving spider. The orb-weaving spider then tears down its current web and builds one that looks something like this.
There we go.
So,
Why would the spider ever do this, Thomas?
I'm glad you asked, Charlie. They do this because so the cocoon, the larva will have a perfect place to construct its cocoon, far from the reach of any predators.
Okay. Another instance is, everyone knows what this is, it's a mosquito. And mosquitoes are notorious for passing on malaria. And malaria is a disease caused by a protozoan called Plasmodium, which lives in the mosquito and drastically alters its psychological behavior. That's the word. To help mature and eventually get into us humans.
But if the mosquito is killed before the protozoan can be passed on to its next victim, it's useless. So, it alters the mosquito's mental state, making it shy and timid. This prevents, and not too eager to go in for a bite. This prevents the mosquito from being killed before it's able to be passed on. But once it is ready to be passed on, it makes the mosquito really kind of risk-taking, and even far after the mosquito is full.
Okay. Another instance is in the killifish, and this just proves that how much effect parasites actually have on a lot of animals. These fluke worms basically make these killifish downright suicidal. Usually, they live in small freshwater areas, and they usually don't go too close to the surface because, I mean, they're pretty bright-looking fish. I mean, it's pretty fabulous, but it's pretty easy to see by a lot of wading birds. And so these fluke worms make the killifish go to the surface and often flash their shiny silvery bellies at the birds in hopes to be eaten. Well, the killifish don't want to be eaten, but the fluke worms do, because that's the only way they can actually mature is inside the stomach of some of these seabirds.
And the sheer number of instances like this one begs the question, what is going on?
Recent research has allowed scientists to actually discover what is going on. Specifically, research at Penn State. Kelly Hoover and Dan Hughes have actually been able to isolate the gene in a virus called baculovirus that affects caterpillars of gypsy moths. And what it does is it forces the caterpillar, it gets inside the cells of the caterpillar and then forces the caterpillar to climb up a tree. And as Thomas mentioned earlier, after it gets high enough, the virus basically just liquefies the caterpillar, spreading its remains onto leaves to be eaten by other caterpillars and spread the virus. These scientists have isolated the gene EGT in the baculovirus and when that DNA was spliced out, the virus could no longer make the caterpillar climb the tree. Although
it is rather unlikely that EGT is the only gene that controls the caterpillar's ability to climb the trees. It is actually pretty rare that only one gene controls an entire action. And even though we've yet to crack the code behind these Mindsuckers, we are beginning to unravel their mysteries.
Oh, and thank you. Just ladybug awareness, guys. They're not always girls. They're not always girls. It's important to know. Thank you. Thank you. That's it.